You live here?
Yes.
Well, maybe you know what a zombie is.
When a person dies and is buried, it seems there's certain voodoo priests who have the power to bring him back to life.
How horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
Hold up. Hey, for my be thinking we soft, we don't play. Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.
This is our now daily. Used to be weekly back in the old days, but the election has gotten so close it's now daily. This is our daily look at all of the numbers, all of the polls, all of the maps behind the road to 218 and a House majority for each party. And of course, it's not just the House. We talk about the Senate, and we even talk a little bit about.
A sure sign of intelligence is a keen awareness of one's own ignorance. Ignorance is not stupidity. There are many things we're ignorant of. That doesn't make us stupid. It makes us uninformed. Willful ignorance of important things and choosing to stay ignorant after the facts are presented is stupidity. In fact, it may be the pinnacle of stupidity and foolishness. A quote that's attributed to Mayor Amschel Rothschilds is, "Give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." Whether he said it or not, it's nonetheless true. And remember that truth because we're going to come back to it. A perfect segue into this video was a comment I read from the last video by Super68. That sheep in the snow analogy contradicts your logic, Brian, because nothing makes you a bigger sheep than not voting and just letting anyone govern you. Once again, your flawed logic backfires on you. We are never going to be independent from government. That hasn't changed since antiquity. How would it ever happen today? Give us a solution for once, a plan to get out of this government slavery, or just go vote the Democrats out. You know how much more corrupt they are, how they want more censorship. The left is insane. Make America Great Again 2020. So let's put my logic to the test. He says nothing makes you a bigger sheep than not voting. First, let's hear the words of some big proponents of voting.
And you sit still, you sit right where you are. Don't you turn that off saying, well, I ain't gonna vote anyway. You're gonna be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote.
So you have to go out on November 6th or sooner. Who voted? Who voted? Oh, wow.
And then there's Donald Trump. Don't boo, vote.
For all those who paved the way that we might have the right to vote. And for anybody here who has an ancestor who didn't have the right to vote, and you are choosing not to vote wherever you are in this state, in this country, you are dishonoring your family.
Everybody voted already?
On Tuesday, November 8th, this country will make one of the most important
decisions in its history. You have a chance.
During these midterms, you need to vote right, vote red, vote Republican.
Then vote.
If you care about immigration,
Children being taken away at the border.
if gun reform matters,
Climate change.
healthcare for young, for old matters, then vote.
And you want to get out to the polls and vote. Vote right so you won't get left. Female voters could also have a major impact on this election.
I didn't take voting seriously until around my mid-20s.
If basic human rights matter, then vote.
The right to vote is like the crown we all get to wear. Maya used to say, baby, your crown has been paid for, so put it on your head and wear it. So your crown's been paid for. The right to vote is your crown.
If women's rights really are human rights,
then vote.
Don't lose hope.
No kidding. Let me see it again. Who voted?
You are disrespecting and disregarding their legacy, their suffering and their dreams when you don't vote. So honor your legacy.
You have an obligation
to be a part of that decision.
you're going to be held seriously to account by God if you don't vote.
We can't say one vote doesn't matter.
Your vote matters.
Your vote matters. It affects everything.
Not just the presidency, but the Senate,
The House,
Your local officials,
immigration,
immigrant,
student debt, common sense gun laws.
the Supreme Court.
So there you have it. Hollywood actors want you to vote, singers and songwriters want you to vote, preachers and politicians want you to vote, and the mainstream media wants you to vote. Not only that, almost everybody around us seems to be of the opinion that it's a pretty good idea to vote. Nope, scratch that. A lot of them believe you have an obligation to vote.
You have an obligation
To be a part of that decision.
And if you don't vote, then somehow you're not operating in the best interest of the United States. The fact that an opinion has been widely held is no evidence whatsoever that it is not utterly absurd. Indeed, in view of the foolishness of the majority of mankind, a widely held belief is more likely to be foolish than sensible. But here's my logical argument, and if there's a deficiency in it, I trust that you'll let me know in the comments section. The very idea of government is immoral, from start to finish. Why? Because it's the idea that a certain group of mere human beings has the exclusive moral right to make commands that you must follow, and they reserve for themselves the moral right to take your stuff without your permission. And I say moral because if you don't obey them or see yourself as having a moral obligation to obey them, then they reserve for themselves the moral right to legally harm you, restrain you, fine you, cage you, and even kill you with no just remedy. Government is not peace, it's war. It's not kindness, it's force. Government doesn't come to you and nicely ask you to do certain things or give them things. It commands you to do things or not do things, and it steals what you have. Governments don't create anything. They siphon the laboring energies of others so they can grow rich and powerful while others suffer. So to summarize, government is the idea that a group of people possesses rights that you and I don't have, who believe they have a higher claim over your life and property than you do. And if you did the exact same things to others that government does to you, you would be arrested and charged as a criminal. Why? Because those acts are criminal activities, and it doesn't matter if you call yourself government when you do them. And never mind the fact that it's impossible to confer a right onto others that you don't possess yourself. And that is exactly what the voting process claims to do. Through voting, you supposedly confer the right to rule and steal from other people on another human being, even though you don't personally, legitimately have that right to rule yourself. So if we don't have the right to give someone else the right to rule and steal other people's stuff, the entire thing is a charade from the get-go. So if government were a cake and you were to separate out the ingredients of that cake, you would have threats, force, unjust violence, coercion, and theft. Without one of these ingredients, you would have no government at all. Every one of these elements is in the poisonous cake called government, or the state. And those who amen the existence of the state are statists. And because all this is a fantasy based on belief, we can rightly view government as a church, and people who hail government as the church members. Where you have government or agents of government in any land, at any level, in any era, you have the most vile immorality known to man. Those who act as government agents are the embodiment of injustice and criminality. Why? Because it's all based on a lie, on force, on unjust violence, threats, coercion, and theft. So as a voter, you willingly become a participant in the lie. And that lie is that you, through your vote of support, are going to confer the right to rule and steal from other people in your name. A right you personally don't have yourself. Nevertheless, you truly believe you're conferring this right. So what does this mean? It means that you, through your vote, grant another human being, the politicians, the right to make commands, threaten, harm, steal from, coerce, and inflict unjust force on others in your name and with your approval. Do I think people think about that in those bare terms? No. Probably not 1 in 10 million would think about it this way. But that's exactly what happens because that's exactly what government is. And that's exactly what voting is. When I see a line of people going to cast their vote, I don't think, oh, look at all those pitiful sheeple. I believe most of those people have good intentions. But as Daniel Webster said, good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be your masters. Every politician, no matter the reason, wants to be your master. He wants to be a ruler. I don't care how nice they seem or what good guys and gals you think they are, they want that position. They want you to vote for them because they want to rule. And it doesn't matter why they want to rule. Another bad thing about voting is that when you vote, you're actually saying, I not only want my politician to rule over me, but I want him to rule over everybody else, even those who voted for somebody else. Heck, I want my politician to rule over those people who don't even want to be ruled. And 10-to-1 says that the voter himself would never in a million years personally threaten, steal from, coerce, be forceful with, or inflict unjust violence on another person himself. But he has no problem voting for somebody else to commit those crimes in his name and in the name of government and under the color of the so-called rule of law. So government is inherently a lie and is lived out as gross immorality. Voters participate in the systemically immoral and therefore criminal concept, and voters approve of the rulers to rule over people by threats, force, unjust violence, coercion, and theft. But here's the coup de grace, guys, and this is where my prediction comes in. My prediction is that no matter who takes public office through voting, backroom selection, rigged voting machines, or any number of dishonest practices, nothing significant will ever change. Back to Amschel Rothschild's quote, "Give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." Does anybody think it's strange that we vote for politicians to protect us and make our lives better, and they always end up making things worse? People really believed in Obama. In the 8 years he was in office, that dude racked up over $9 trillion in additional national debt. Not to mention stripping us of more of our freedoms, overseeing constant wars, drones striking the crap out of and killing God knows how many innocent people, and still his supporters think this guy hung the moon. That's like inviting your Uncle Jim over to the house to stay for a while, and in the course of 8 days, he steals your credit cards, racks up $90,000 worth of debt, he threatens and beats your wife, and kills a couple of your kids, and at the end of it, you say, you know, that Jim is not a bad guy. It's insanity. The owners of the corporation called the United States is the private, unaccountable banking cartel known as the Federal Reserve. They own the paper that we all think is money every one of us has in our possession. And if you doubt this, just pull out a bill, any bill. You'll see the words Federal Reserve Note. This is nothing of value. It's a note of debt. And that is your problem. Seriously, pull it out, hold it up. This is your problem. This is my problem. This is everybody's problem in the United States. Heck, this is everybody's problem in the world because it is the world reserve currency. It's not sound money like gold and silver. It's a counterfeit note. It's dishonest money which signifies your indebtedness. And if it signifies your indebtedness, it signifies your slavery to the money masters. And we're talking about a frickin' migrant caravan 1,000 miles south of the border? Like I told a subscriber earlier, being concerned about the migrant caravan or some other smoke and mirrors ridiculous story from the 24/7 brain-dead news media cycle is like your kid yelling to you from inside the house, "Help, Daddy, there are 3 men raping Mommy in the bedroom!" And the dad answers back, "Not now, kiddo, I'm trying to get the lawnmower started. The grass is really getting pretty high. We got some serious problems out here." There is no other problem, has been no other problem, and will be no other problem greater than a bunch of corrupt banksters having control over our money supply. And if you think I'm wrong, I'd like to hear your reasoned objection. So here's my prediction in a nutshell. No matter who takes office, no matter who seems to control the House, the Senate, the judiciary, this is exactly what will happen after Election Day, 100% guaranteed. The Federal Reserve will continue operations unhindered. The world's largest domestic terrorist organization, the IRS, will continue terrorizing. Your property taxes will remain intact. Your income tax will not be abolished. Israel will continue to exercise unbridled power over Washington's District of Criminals. Politicians will continue enriching themselves with your tax money. The military-industrial complex will continue to grow because the petrodollar must be defended at all costs by force. The so-called war on drugs will continue, as will the prison-industrial complex, which has grown exponentially since the 1970s because of the drug war. Wars will continue in the Middle East and all over the world. The US government will continue draining us dry with its over 800 military bases in over 130 countries, and the national debt will continue to skyrocket. All this is guaranteed. And it doesn't matter who you vote for. Vote all you want. These are the real issues. These are the things mainstream media glosses over or refuses to talk about. These are the things that keep us enslaved. Until these things are eliminated one by one, nothing will ever change, and your vote is a colossal waste of time. Except for one thing. Your continued participation in such a corrupt system lets the social engineers know that their plan to institute nationwide immorality in the minds of the people is still working. So what's your answer, Brian? You never offer a solution. I offer a solution in almost every single one of my videos. And not just a solution, it's the solution. I saw a kid one day at a pool I was at. He was standing right next to the pool screaming his head off because the people in the pool were splashing him and he didn't want to get wet. He kept screaming to his mom, "Mommy, I don't want to get wet. I don't want to get wet." And she said very calmly, "Sweetie, if you don't want to get wet, step away from the pool. If you don't want evil in your land, stop participating in it. Your vote is a vote for government. Therefore, your vote is a vote for evil. You're voting for evil to protect you from evil." Does that even make sense? Matter of fact, your vote for government is a vote for the worst kind of evil this world has to offer. What's the solution? Wake up and stop participating in evil. Can you imagine if just 10 million people did that? They wouldn't accept any kind of evil in their lives, and they wouldn't tolerate it in the lives of others. Believing in government, especially believing that government is there to do you good, is truly the height of ignorance. And if you know what government is and you still participate in the process, then that's the height of stupidity. If I'm wrong on this, you can launch ad hominems all you want, but I think most people would prefer hearing a rational, logical, calm argument instead. I'll see you guys in the next video.